Recent polls have consistently shown that an increasing majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's disastrous mismanagement of the economy, from his inflationary policies to his reckless and stupid trade wars with our biggest trading partners. Well, Trump took that bad situation and made it much, much worse by admitting recently in an interview that he, quote, couldn't care less if his policies raise prices for the American people. Yikes. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Yep, NBC dropped that bombshell story, and it was actually in an NBC interview, a telephone interview with Kristen Welker. So, Trump says he, quote, couldn't care less, end quote, if foreign automakers raise prices due to tariffs. In a phone interview with NBC News, Donald Trump also said he wouldn't fire anyone involved in the Signal group chat. Donald Trump told NBC News in an interview Saturday that he would not fire anyone involved in the Signal group chat where military attack plans were inadvertently divulged to a journalist, and later added that he, quote, couldn't care less if automakers raise prices due to new tariffs. In a phone interview that lasted more than 10 minutes, Trump also discussed his commitment to annexing Greenland and reiterated that a military option was not off the table. So to recap, before we read any further. Number one, Trump says he couldn't care less if Americans have to pay more as a consequence of his tariffs when he's already underwater with respect to tariff policy and economic management. Really stupid idea. Democrats should relentlessly, viciously, consistently pounce on this. Number two, he's not going to fire anybody in what is at least one of the biggest national security breaches in modern American history, demonstrating that they lack the seriousness and competence to be trusted with America's secrets. And that also, we might actually invade and conquer a foreign sovereign state or foreign territory under the control of a sovereign state. Interesting. Yeah, right? 2 paragraphs. Anyway, following a week of headlines about Signal, tariffs, and Greenland, the president waved off concerns that his agenda is causing volatility on Wall Street or decreasing consumer confidence, pointing to polling that shows that the share of Americans who believe the country is on the right track is at record highs. Still, by the way, underwater. More Americans than not think we're on the wrong track than the right track. But yes, it is relatively high, and of course, then we have to consider why that is. It could be because they agree with Trump on other policies, like immigration, but that doesn't mean that his economic policies are something that people are optimistic about or support. Quote, what I see is right track, wrong track, and the right track was the first time in like 40 years where it was right track, Trump said, pointing at one point putting Alexander Stubb, the president of Finland, on the phone as well. The two men were golfing in Florida on Saturday. By the way, I should have pulled this up already. I'm going to do that right now before I forget. But we are seeing like a stunning price tag on Donald Trump's golfing trips. He spent like 38% of his presidency thus far golfing. And like this is stunning. Taxpayer stubs. Let's just pull it over here. Let me get it over here. This is crazy. Taxpayers tabs for Trump's second-term golf excursions crosses $26 million. So he's been in office for 2 months, and he's golfed effectively 38% of his presidency. And it has cost the American taxpayer $26 million. So in other words, Elon Musk, Doge, we've got some waste, fraud, and abuse we got to get rid of. Maybe you should look at Trump's golfing. Anyway, continue. The president said he, quote, couldn't care less if automakers raised prices after he announced that he would impose 25% tariffs on all foreign-made automobiles. Asked what his recent message was to motor industry CEOs and whether he had warned them against raising prices, Trump said, quote, the message is congratulations. If you make your car in the United States, you're going to make a lot of money. If you don't, you're going to have to come to the United States because if you make your car in the United States, there's no tariffs. When pressed if he told CEOs not to raise prices, as reported in the Wall Street Journal, Trump said, quote, no, I never said that. I couldn't care less if they raise prices because people are going to start buying American-made cars. Trump continued, quote, I couldn't care less. I hope they raise their prices because if they do, people are going to buy American-made cars. We have plenty. Asked if he was concerned about car prices going up, Trump said, quote, no, I couldn't care less because if prices on foreign cars go up, they're going to buy American cars. So he is very much repeating himself. After the interview, an aide to the president followed up with an NBC News to say Trump was referring specifically to foreign car prices. Okay, buddy. NBC News reported earlier this week that foreign auto parts would be taxed at 25% even if the vehicles they go into are assembled domestically. So there seems to be a contradiction here. Companies that import vehicles under the USMCA will get special consideration until the government establishes a process for levying the 25% duty. So they intend to impose those tariffs even on USMCA-compliant companies. Until that time, auto parts as part of the USMCA compliant protocol will remain tariff-free, but only on borrowed time. Trump also said the tariffs would be permanent. Quote, absolutely, they're permanent. Sure, the world has been ripping off the United States for the last 40 years or more, and all we're doing is being fair, and frankly, I'm being very generous. Yeah. So, Trump's tariff announcement on Wednesday came just weeks before his planned April 2nd Liberation Day, when tariffs on a variety of consumer goods are set to take effect. They drew swift condemnation from international leaders like the Japanese Prime Minister and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. In remarks on Thursday, Carney told reporters that tariffs were, quote, unjustified, and, quote, the old relationship we had with the United States, based on a deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over. Trump on Saturday maintained he does not plan to further delay the imposition of the April 2nd tariffs, and he would consider negotiating on that point, quote, only if people are willing to give us something of great value, because countries have things of great value. Otherwise, there's no room for negotiation. Now, regarding the Signal incident, Trump says he has no plans to fire anyone following news that National Security Advisor Michael Waltz added a journalist to a Signal group chat with senior members of the Trump administration who were discussing plans to strike Houthi militants in Yemen earlier this month. Quote, I don't fire people because of fake news and because of witch hunts, Trump said, calling the story fake news throughout the interview. Quote, I do, the president said when asked if he still has confidence in Waltz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was also in the group chat and sent a detailed timeline of the planned strikes before they happen. Quote, I just think it's a witch hunt, and the fake news, like you, talk about it all the time, but it's just a witch hunt, and it shouldn't be talked about. We had a tremendously successful strike. We struck very hard and very lethal, and nobody wants to talk about that. All they want to talk about is nonsense. It's fake news. Quote, I have no idea what Signal is. I don't care what Signal is. All I can tell you is it's just a witch hunt, and the only thing the press wants to talk about because they have nothing else to talk about because it's been the greatest 100-day presidency in the history of our country. So, folks, there you have it. Well, I guess since we mentioned Greenland, even though we tend not to talk about foreign policy here, this is a big deal. Trump also said Saturday that he, quote, absolutely had real conversations about annexing Greenland, which currently is a semi-autonomous Danish territory. We'll get Greenland. Yeah, 100%, Trump said. He added that, quote, there's a good possibility we could do it without military force, but that, quote, I don't take anything off the table. Yeah. So, again, to recap, Trump's polling is disastrous on the economy. And again, Democrats should ruthlessly pounce on this. And in response to this, Trump says, yeah, I don't care if people raise prices. I don't care if producers or companies raise prices. It doesn't matter. Okay. Number two, I'm not going to fire anybody involved in one of, if not the greatest national security breach in modern American history because I want to own the libs. It's a witch hunt, even though it's not. I just get to say things are witch hunts. And, I'm hoping that people will just drop it, which they shouldn't. And number three, we may not use the military in an attempt to annex a semi-autonomous Danish territory. Yeah. This is where we are. People should be pouncing on this relentlessly as much as they are able. Democrats need to step up and loudly, aggressively, with one voice, condemn all of this and make sure that it generates the appropriate political backlash because facts, of course, do not and never have speak for themselves. So, in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.